and hear me okay? All right, so if you can, please do me a favor and throw a comment in the chat so I can see you. I'll see them whether they're coming from YouTube or Facebook or anywhere like that. And then we can go ahead and get started. So welcome. Today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be talking about why it's important to learn scales across your fretboard, learn positions across your fretboard, and I want to give you some tips on some things that you can do to help practice that. Hey Patrick, how are you doing? Richard G is here, Sergi is here, Michael is here from the UK, very awesome. Okay, so thank you so much for everybody being here. Jean is here. Very cool. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day. Happy Friday to you too. I've been quite sick, so I don't know how long I'm gonna go today, but I got my hair ready and here I am. So no COVID, just really bad cold that time of year. Hey Stephen. Hey Mike. Hey Samuel. Samuel is here from the Philippines. Awesome. Scott is here. Jeff Jarvis is here. How you doing, Jeff? Good to see you, bud. Andrew is here, Phil is here. So obviously we've already got, you probably can't see the counters, but we've got a couple hundred people already, so I can't say hello to everybody. But hello, Champ. Hello, Jason. And Russ is here from New York City. Barbara is here. Sean is here. Charles is here. So thank you so much. Awesome. So glad you're all here. So let's go ahead and get started. 2 weeks with a cold, Remy says. Yeah, I've been struggling all week with this stupid thing. So I'm hoping it goes away next week. But anyway, so let's go ahead and get started. So what we're going to be doing today, we're talking about why it's important to learn scales across the fretboard. And the one thing I want to mention is I've got a new course out, Essential Guitar Scales, and I want to make sure that if you want to learn how to play scales and learn how to solo better, do me a favor, click the link near this video or go to guitarzoom.com. There's going to be, I'm sure in the chat they're going to throw a link over there. You can check out Essential Guitar Scales. So they wanted me to mention it's on sale now for a special launch discount. It comes with several free gifts for the first 200 people. And if you want to play more melodic guitar solos, make sure that you find that link, okay? After this session, I'm going to be sending out an email with a link for you to check out Essential Guitar Scales if you're interested. Hopefully that will help you a little bit. So let me just tell you a little bit of my story. When I was first learning about guitar scales, like many people, I started off learning how to play pentatonic. Hey everybody, hey Edward. Hey Lahu. Hopefully I said that right. Robert is here. So when I first started learning scales, I didn't understand how to visualize scales across the fretboard. So I was basically stuck in one position. That's what I spent a lot of time in. Now I found a jam track today that I want to show you an example in how to practice this a little bit. This one's in B minor. So let's just say, for instance, I was in B minor and I go up to this pentatonic position right here. And we can do more than pentatonic. We can move into diatonic too, and I'll do a little bit of that as well for you. So as I'm playing here, like many people, when I first started learning these scales, what I did was I practiced them up and down. I would set my metronome, and this is all good practice, don't get me wrong. And I would practice that over and over and over with the metronome. But what I found was that there was a couple things that I think I was missing that were very important that I started teaching to students along the way, is that when you're in that position, whether you're playing, pentatonic, or maybe you're playing some sort of a diatonic thing, whatever it might be that you're trying to play, the most important thing is that you've got to learn how to get creative with those. Now, the question is, well, why do we want to learn how to play a scale across the entire fretboard, let alone multiple scales? So the first thing I want you to understand is that we're dealing with voicing, okay? When I go to play over something, I always think of my fretboard as being like a bass and a baritone and a tenor and an alto and that sort of thing, where I have all of these different places that I can go on the guitar to get different voicings to kind of match either the energy I'm trying to put out or what the jam track is actually kind of giving me. So let me show you this. This is just a jam track I found on YouTube. Again, I'm just using something from Elevated Jam Tracks. You've heard me talk about them before. Just what I tried to do was find something that was a little bit medium tempo, and I'll show you why in just a second here. But I'm just going to play a little bit of this. So again, I'm just looking for somewhere to go. And that voicing allows me to think, well, do I want something a little bit more low? Or do I want something kind of in the center? Or a little bit higher up? Right? Or way high up? So one thing I want you to think about is, you know, if we kind of eliminate the technical element of playing all the time, of how fast we can play or whatever it might be. I keep dropping my pick. If we don't think about it that direction and we just think about the sounds that we're trying to make, okay, we can start thinking a little bit more. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to back off. I'm going to play the same thing, but I'm going to back way off, and I'm just going to think more about voicing. That the jam track that I'm playing over all of a sudden got a little bit louder. So I might at that point bring my, because you'll notice I drop my volume back and stuff like that too, to try and kind of feel something with this track. Now, I'm not saying this is the perfect track for this morning. I'm not feeling much of anything after being sick, but that's the first thing, is understanding that learning how to play scales in different positions can give you the ability of that voicing. The second thing, obviously, is that it gives you the freedom to go anywhere it is that you want to across the fretboard, okay? So that's what I want you to think about, is that freedom. And again, when I was a kid, I didn't have that, because, you know, I might have, for instance, one position on the you know, like that first position of pentatonic. And that's all I had. And then maybe I started learning the second position, but what I found was, both with my playing and with teaching students, is that we tended to play with blinders on, because we learn like the first position, right? We talk about first position. And just so you know too, next week on Monday, I'm going to be covering pentatonics, what they are, how they work, that sort of thing. Wednesday, I'm going to be talking about diatonic scales. And then Friday, I'm going to be out of town, but I'm going to pre-record something that talks about modes. So we, again, not super deep into the theory of it, but understanding the basics of how these things work and what we do with them. So Monday pentatonic, Wednesday diatonic, Friday modes. But Friday will be pre-recorded. I got to go to band rehearsals in Minneapolis, so I'll be gone for the weekend. So I'll be gone Friday, but I will pre-record it because I want to make sure that you that makes sense to you. Okay, so let's go ahead and go back here. So let's talk about this a little bit. So I've got this first position here. And let's say I start learning the second position. So I go in here. What's kind of interesting is that what I found was, when I would teach these things, is that we would practice again with the metronome moving up and down. But it always seemed like, including myself when I was younger, you play with blinders on. Like when you get into a position, all you do is move up and down that position, right? And then you move over and you move up and down that position, because that's how we practice these things. So that's what our brain learns. That's the repetition that we learn, and there's nothing wrong with that. But at some point, what we need to do is we need to start learning how to get more creative with that, so we can expressively move wherever we want to on the fretboard. So there's a technique that I like to teach people called meandering, if you've ever heard of meandering before, okay? So with meandering, what you do is you can use a metronome, or you can use a backing track, or whatever you want. If you use a backing track or a jam track, you want to make sure that you find something that's in a key that is comfortable for you, and most importantly, at a tempo that's comfortable for you, okay? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take this, and all this stuff we talk about, when you're learning scales like in the Essential Guitar courses, course, you want to make sure that you're learning how to visualize them, and then what you're going to do is you're going to practice exactly what we're talking about right now. So with this particular jam track that I found it because it's a little bit slower, okay? So let me show you this. Again, just thinking in terms of subdivision. We'll just start there. So if I think about that beat, bump, 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 let's say I'm an absolute beginner, but I want to start trying to learn how to get creative with my scale. I want to start learning more about my fretboard. What I could do is take this position of B minor. I'm just going to take the first position right now, make it nice and easy. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to practice this technique called meandering. Now, meandering, there's a couple of parameters to meandering. Number one is it's not meant to be musical at the moment. The more we practice it, the more musical it will become as we change things about it. And we'll talk a little bit more about this as we keep going through next week as well. But the first initial parameters of meandering are you have to give yourself some sort of position on the guitar. Maybe it's a couple positions connected together, which I'll show you in a second. And here's the rule. You can't stop playing. You can't stop playing. Because what you're trying to do is you're trying to train yourself to play, and I'm going to use the term brainlessly, and I don't mean that mean. We're not trying to get creative. We're not trying to do anything. We're just trying to see how long our hands can, by automation, continue moving around, making something up in the position or the positions that we've decided on in the guitar. So we can't stop moving. That's the first thing. The second thing is we can't just play the scale up and down. That's the second rule, because we already do that with a metronome, okay? So what we're going to try and do right now is I'm going to start playing, and I want to show you this. So let me switch this camera angle here. I'm going to start playing a little bit. Nice and slow. Well, let me go back even to this one. Seem really, really simple, and for some of you it certainly would be, but the point is what you're trying to train yourself to do is by automation move around inside that first position without stopping, okay? And you're trying to jump over strings, right? And you're trying to make different kinds of shapes and repeat different things, but you're not just playing it up and down like a scale, okay? So if that makes sense, okay, let's keep going. Same idea. Now, what I want to be aware of as I'm doing this is the tempo at which I'm doing this, because it might be too slow. It might be too fast, right? Whatever it might be. And this is where a metronome certainly comes into play. Because the next step for me is to start playing twice as fast as this. If this is the jam track that I'm using, if this is what I'm using for this experiment, you know, I'm not going to move into triplets and things like that right now. That's not what I'm worried about. I'm just going to go twice as fast. But I don't want to do that until I'm absolutely certain that I'm able to meander without stopping through this position. Okay? Now let me show you what happens when I kick into, I'm going to double this now. So here we go. It's beginning to sound a little bit more like music, okay? We're not there yet, but at least what I'm doing is I'm now training myself to understand how well do I know that first position of minor pentatonic? How efficient am I at being able to brainlessly move around inside this position? right? Because if we think about soloing and scales and all this sort of thing, the scale is giving us the ladder or the roadmap to move around the fretboard. But just because we know the scale doesn't mean we're creative with it. So this is the first step in developing that creativity, is being able to kind of think about how you're going to move around, your ability of being able to move your fingers in any capacity you want. So you're not just going... You see, when you do that, everything just sounds like a scale, which is what Daniel just said. He said, whenever I try to meander, it sounds like a scale. That's the hard part, is you've got to try and learn how to, and the key for, especially since he had mentioned it, let me pull that up, Daniel here. Let me pull up Daniel's comment. So Daniel, just so you know, the trick to this is find a tempo that works. The problem with us being humans is we always try and do everything too fast, and then we feel guilty if we, have to slow down the metronome or something like that. And I'm telling you, the truth is, the key to this is you've got to find a tempo that works. This track might not work for you. You might need something with a completely different tempo, and you might just use a metronome to get started, anything like that. But the point is if I just go like this, I'm not really exploring the creativity of this scale. I'm just playing by route that I was practicing, that I was doing before with the metronome, and I was just practicing up and down with blinders on, as I just kind of mentioned to you. So the trick is I got to break out of that. So if I think about, like what I tell people is think about right and left side, right? Do things... and think about jumping over strings. And you'll start getting stuff that sounds a little more interesting as you do that. Now, why do we want to learn how to do this across the fretboard? To give us that creativity. How do we do that? Once we've established that first position, what we could start doing then is maybe move into the second position. So what I would recommend, there's two different ways you can approach this, obviously. The first way is that you could just take this and you could start meandering with just that position. Right? Over and over and over. So let me start the track here so you can kind of hear what I'm doing. Same idea. Okay? Now the big kicker comes when you start trying to put these two together. Okay, you take that first position, you take that second position, and you start moving around within them. And you can't do this until you've established the learning of those first two positions, right? And I'm telling you, it isn't, learning how to play guitar, learning how to do anything really well isn't about how much information you can shove in a short amount of time. It's how well can you get with whatever it is you're using. It doesn't matter whether it's pentatonic. It doesn't matter whether it's diatonic. It doesn't matter, we get so caught up in, especially in the social media age, of watching people and then going, oh my God, I'll never be able to do that. Well, we really aren't trying to do that anyway. We got to figure out what works for us, and especially at the level that we're at right now. Today, what can we do to get better tomorrow, right? That's kind of the whole thing. Not... And getting all bummed out about watching somebody else doing all this amazing stuff isn't gonna, it might inspire us, but if it doesn't inspire us and it just bums us out, we have to think about a better way to approach this, right? So what I could do then is I could start taking these two positions. Let me move this back a little bit. So you're going to work one of two ways. Either you're going to take a position And you're going to practice it over and over and over, meandering, and then you're going to take another position and practice it, and you're going to take another position and practice it, whatever scale you're using. Or you're going to take a position and another position, and you're going to learn to maneuver between those. And I would strongly recommend doing that, because even if you only learn a couple of positions, but you can really maneuver well between them, you can make great music with it, okay? But you can just keep learning each position and learning how to play those really well. But ultimately, to see the entire fretboard, what you want to do is be able to maneuver and meander between multiple positions. So as I'm going from position 2, I'm calling it, to 1, to 5, to 4, whatever it might be, you see? Now, the really cool thing is once you start learning how to do this and you want to start converting it into music, what you do is you start chopping your movements into little pieces. I shouldn't say little pieces, but different phrases, different sized sentences, if you will. Longer sentences, shorter sentences. But here's the difference. When you first started doing this, you might have involuntarily had to stop moving because your brain shuts down. When you try and practice this, you know, the tempo's too fast, or you don't know the position well enough, or whatever it might be, and your brain shuts down and you stop playing, okay? Your brain is forcing you to stop because you're not ready for whatever it is you're trying to do, and it's important that you figure out those details, okay? Now, on this side that we're talking about right now, it's just the opposite. We're not stopping because we have to. We're stopping because we choose to. And you're going to notice when I add stops in, it's going to start sounding a little bit more like music. So again, as I'm playing, what I'm going to try and be aware of are two things: different sized sentences or phrases. Playing a little bit, stopping. Playing a little longer and stopping. Trying to do different things. And the second thing I'm going to start thinking about is pauses versus stops. Pauses are, I hold a note. Stop means I stop playing entirely. A pause is like a comma in music, or when we're talking. The sentence isn't over, we're just taking a little break. A stop is a period, we literally stop. So watch the difference here as I play. Now, I'm purposely avoiding any bending and things like that I feel myself wanting to do. But obviously, all of those things could be added in once you get better at this. Because again, always focus on what your goal is at hand, right? If all of a sudden I start trying to work on a particular lick or a bend or something, that's all great. But now I'm not working on meandering anymore. I've diverted myself to somewhere else and I'm doing something else, and that's okay. But if I want to learn to truly embrace my fretboard, what I need to do is I need to take a scale and chop it into positions, which is what all essential guitar scales is all about, is being able to chop those pieces into positions and then practice the daylights out of that position and then learn another position. But learning 2 or 3 positions and not really knowing them, the problem is if you've ever been in these situations when you turn on the camera or you jam with other people and you get in front of your guitar teacher or whatever it might be, and you freeze up, you seize up, right? The trick is to get past that. So it isn't, and when you change your mindset, and it's not just about trying to be the fastest and the best of whatever, but trying to figure out how you can be the best at what you're doing, again, today, and then tomorrow can be better, and the next day can be even better. But figuring out where you are and developing a game plan of what is working and what isn't working. What I love about meandering, when I used to do this with, I don't do private lessons anymore, but when I used to, is you could immediately tell, okay, we got to turn down the metronome, or you got to practice that scale position more. You have to be aware of that, from a remote perspective, but it's very easy to do. When you start playing along, you immediately go, that tempo isn't going to work. Or this scale that I'm trying to do, I don't know it. Or this position, I don't really know that very well. I need to stop this whole thing and figure out what I'm doing. And the more you do that, the easier it gets, okay? Now, it is possible, if you're really good at this, to move into the next level using that kind of play, where you're going to double the tempo now. Let me move this back a little bit. So if I can do that, now I've got kind of 3 different levels that I can play at in terms of tempo. That doesn't mean I want to play at that speed all the time. And maybe I'll just use a little bit of that. Maybe I'll just use a little bit with some hammer-ons or pull-offs or something like that just to change the dynamic. But if I do that, my soloing now has... whatever it might be. But in order to do any of this stuff, I have to practice the positions. I have to practice those shapes. And I have to get to know them, and I have to connect them together. So it's very important that you take your time with this stuff, okay? So hopefully that makes sense to you. Practice this over the weekend, and then Monday what we're going to do is we're actually going to start trying to put together some of the pentatonic stuff and talk about some relationships between the positions to make your visualization of those positions a little bit easier. And then what we're going to do on Wednesday is expand those out and see the relationship between pentatonic and diatonic. And then Friday we're going to talk a little bit about modes and understand a little bit about how that works. Again, none of these are meant to go into a 4-hour dissertation of this stuff, but at least it gets you going on some ideas to help you. And if you're interested, please do me a favor, check out Essential Guitar Scales and see if it's something that you're interested in. At the very least, subscribe to our social channels and watch our videos and share them. Everybody over here at Guitar Zoom sure appreciates that. It keeps us and certainly me able to do what I'm doing and help you out as much as I can. So most importantly, stay positive and keep practicing. And stay positive. Really, give yourself a break and enjoy what you're doing and why you're doing it, and keep reminding yourself of that. So everybody, take care.